Brian and Perko Gallagher are third-generation dairy farmers on a farm located very close to Pukekohe. There's a long tradition of environmental care on the property that they're keen to share with others, as well as introducing city dwellers to other aspects of rural life. To help them in their environmental aims and to further their public outreach, they've become involved with a team of school children through the Trees for Survival program. Brian and Perko have planted 20,000 trees to date. Program manager Sally Clegg explains.
Trees for Survival began in 1990 when Noel Holyoake, who was a member of the Rotary Club, went over to an international Rotary, and the theme for that one was preserving the planet. And Noel Holyoake came back with the idea that what we should do is set up something here, and Trees for Survival came out of that. And they started small in a few schools around Pakuranga, and then it grew from there. And the idea with Trees for Survival is that shade houses are brought into the school. So we build the shade houses and then take them to the schools. And they've got irrigation within the shade houses with a timer. And then the kids will pot on the seedlings which they're given. And those, once they're potted on and they grow to a certain height, the kids will then plant them out on their local environment. And I think it's a unique program because you have that mixture of restoring the environment, but you're bringing the next generation with you. And I think that's what's so special about Trees for Survival, is just seeing the kids in action out in the field. The age range goes right the way through, so primary and secondary. There are 141 schools in the program at the moment. 91 of those are in Auckland, so it's very much an Auckland base. It started there, and that's because we've had such great support from Auckland Council. Auckland Council came on board and funded the field officers. So they have 7 field officers for the whole of the Auckland region. And that made a really good start. And it set the standard really for how we were going to move out into other areas. So there are 36 schools in the Waikato, and then in Bay of Plenty we've got 12. And then we have schools, we have a couple of schools down in Queenstown and one up north and one, so there are ones dotted around. And I think the idea really of moving forward should be that we create clusters of schools. In each of the areas we have seed collectors who will eco-source the seeds for the particular schools and planting sites. So schools will get seeds to go with the planting sites where they're going to plant. We have cyperus and carex grasses, and they will go along a stream edge. And then, because those are the plants that will slow down a flow of water, they can hang on when the water level rises and comes back. The flaxes and cabbage trees will go behind those. And then further up the bank, we will plant the coprosmas and the mahoe and the manuka trees. So that's basically the sort of starter pack that we give to each school. The kids have these at school in the shade house.
Okay.
But the shade house is full, so I know you had a nursery.
Oh, yeah, you know us, we always have room for one more tray.
Brian has been planting for a long time with us and is a very enthusiastic planter. So we've found all sorts of areas on his farm where we're able to plant. And it's just, he's a very enthusiastic landowner and very supportive of Trees for Survival, so it's always great to come back here.
Our farm here in Peramahoe, we're 30 minutes from downtown Auckland. The topography is more sort of rolling to steep, you know, a bit unusual for a dairy farm here in South Auckland. And the soils are Peramahoe clay loams. So split calving operations, so 50-50, 200 autumn calving cows, and they start calving technically the 20th of March, and our second herd will start on about the 20th of July. We live so close to Pukekohe, our township's only 7 kilometres away. And we actually don't have any staff living on farm, so all our staff commute to the property. A couple of them have company vehicles, it's the way we work it. The plants we look for are those hardy plants that are going to sustain our environment here. And although we're a fairly warm climate, the flaxes, the manuka, the kanukas and that are behind me here establish really quickly. Yeah. And it works very well with the Trees for Survival program. So the varieties that are standing behind us right now, they were the first ones that we actually planted. And it becomes a bug, I'll freely admit it. We're now looking at areas where we can continually plant every year. And we're grateful that the Trees for Survival program works really well. It's an excellent program run by Auckland Council. and around New Zealand. And we get a bunch of school kids come in. They get to see something totally different out of their comfort zone. The biggest challenge, I think, as farmers in New Zealand is getting that buy-in factor. And if we can attract those kids from a young age to probably learn that when they open the fridge, milk isn't in a carton, they get the opportunity to see how it actually, the whole agricultural system works. And I think that if we can create a better connect between the rural and the urban kids and the farms, then it's a win-win for us as well. And I think that's why we inevitably try and have as many visitors on farm here as we can. And it's just bridging that gap. Yeah.
That's right. The landowner will sign up to maintenance of the site, and so the children will do the planting and then they'll come back. And very often the landowners will put out an invitation to the children to any time you're here, come and have a look at your planting. And I think that's so important for kids within their area. They can go back and say, I planted that. There are many, many farmers who do a lot of work in planting, and I'm always really impressed as to how hard they work at site prep and fencing off, as well as the maintenance of the plants afterwards. You know, I come back year after year, and you see an amazing site where all the trees have grown up, and it's just fantastic to go back 5 years later and see these things, you know, sort of looking after themselves. We'd love to plant more waterways, and we'd love to have more children out planting with us, and we'd love to have more sponsors on board, so that's looking to the future. There's no reason why 2,400 schools in New Zealand can't be involved. That's all the schools in New Zealand, and that's where we'd like to go.